You ever reach a point in your life where you look around and realize that the world got too loud? Everybody talking, everybody claiming they know you, everybody pulling you in directions you never asked to go. And somewhere in that noise, you lose pieces of yourself, your peace, your purpose, your damn identity. But there comes a moment, quiet, small, almost invisible, when something inside you says, enough, enough explaining, enough proving, enough trying to fit into spaces that were never built to hold your spirit. That's the moment you start focusing on yourself. That's the moment you pull back, step aside, and let the silence do what the noise never could. Because silence ain't weakness. It's strategy, it's power. It's you choosing to grow without an audience, to heal without applause, to build without distraction. And the world won't understand it. They'll think you disappeared. They'll think you quit. But the truth is, you're just sharpening. You're just becoming. You're just leveling up in ways they can't see yet. And when you come back, when you rise, your silence will be the reason your presence hits different. So focus on you, protect your energy, stay silent, and let your evolution speak louder than your voice ever could. Focusing on yourself is not selfish, it is necessary, and it is powerful in a way most people never understand until life forces them to. When you stop chasing people, their approval, their attention, their validation, you begin to notice something you may have ignored for years: your own voice, your own desires, your own direction. For so long, many of us move through life reacting to pressure, reacting to expectations, reacting to the opinions that others place on our shoulders. And in all that reacting, we forget to act for ourselves. We forget that our life belongs to us, not to the crowd we are trying to impress or the people we are trying to keep. When you choose to focus on yourself, you make a decision that a lot of people can't make. You decide to step out of the cycle of pleasing and proving. You decide to give your energy to the one person who actually has to live with every choice you make you. That shift is powerful because it brings clarity. When you stop giving your time to everyone who asks for it, you suddenly have time to understand who you are becoming. When you stop explaining yourself to people who have already made up their minds about you, you suddenly have room to grow without judgment weighing you down. When you stop chasing relationships, friendships, or recognition, you create space for things that are actually meant for you. People fear focusing on themselves because they think it means being alone. The truth is, focusing on yourself doesn't make you lonely, it makes you aligned. It reconnects you with the parts of your identity you bury just to make others comfortable. It brings you back to your own goals, your own dreams, the things you pushed aside because life got noisy and distracting. When you turn inward, you start recognizing what drains you and what fuels you. You see who brings chaos and who brings peace. You learn where you've been giving too much and receiving too little. And with that awareness, you begin to reclaim your power. You start saying no more often, not to be cold, but to protect your spirit. You start speaking less and observing more, not because you're timid, but because you're focused. You start cutting off the habits, people, and environments that stunt your growth. And in that process, you become stronger without even trying. The reason focusing on yourself is one of the greatest forms of power is because it shifts your entire life from the outside in to the inside out. You stop letting other people dictate your path. You stop letting opinions control your decisions. You stop giving your worth to anyone who doesn't know how to value it. External validation becomes irrelevant because you finally begin validating yourself. And once you taste that kind of internal strength, it's impossible to go back. You carry yourself differently. You move with purpose. You talk with intention. You stop forcing anything that isn't flowing naturally because you recognize that what is meant for you won't need to be chased. It will meet you in the space you've cleared by focusing on your own growth. The people around you may not immediately understand this shift. Some will call you distant, some will call you selfish, some will feel uncomfortable because they can no longer control you. But that's the cost of evolution. When you rise alone first. When you invest in yourself, you outgrow environments that were built on your insecurities. You walk away from versions of yourself that no longer serve you. And slowly, Life begins to align in ways you couldn't see when your attention was scattered everywhere except where it belonged. That is the power of focusing on yourself. It turns your life into something intentional, something meaningful, something built on strength rather than survival. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength, yet it is one of the most powerful tools you can ever learn to use. Most people think silence means weakness, passivity, or surrender, but in reality, silence is where clarity is born. It's where wisdom grows. It's where you regain control over your own narrative without constantly reacting to the noise around you. When you stay silent, you are no longer feeding chaos with emotional responses. You're no longer giving people access to your thoughts, your plans, or your insecurities. You learn to hold your energy instead of scattering it everywhere, and that creates a force within you that is difficult for others to penetrate. Silence keeps people guessing. Silence protects your intentions. Silence sharpens your mind because you begin to pay attention to what is happening around you without feeling pressured to jump in or prove anything. There is a special kind of power in watching without announcing, moving without warning, and growing without broadcasting your every step. People love to know what you're doing, and they love to read you, predict you, judge you, label you. They want to understand your every move so they can feel comfortable or in control. But when you stay silent, you disrupt that entire dynamic. You become unpredictable in a world that tries so hard to categorize you. You become difficult to manipulate because nobody knows what you're thinking, where you're going, or what you're preparing for. And in that mystery, you find freedom. Silence gives you the space to reflect before you act. It helps you separate emotion from logic, impulse from intention. It teaches you to respond with purpose instead of reacting out of frustration. When you stop speaking into situations that drain you, when you stop defending yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, when you stop giving explanations to individuals who haven't earned access to your mind, you reclaim your peace. Silence is not about shutting down. It is about tuning in. It's about listening to the world with a different level of awareness. You start hearing what people really mean beneath their words. You notice actions more clearly than promises. You observe patterns that you were too distracted to see when you were constantly talking, arguing, or explaining. And once you start observing instead of engaging, you recognize who is genuine and who is pretending, who is loyal, and who is only present when it benefits them. Silence removes illusions. It shows you who belongs in your life and who is only there because you fill the silence with effort. Many people are uncomfortable with silence because it forces them to face their own truth. It exposes the parts of themselves they've been avoiding. But when you learn to embrace silence, you step into a deeper level of self-control. You don't rush decisions. You don't give emotional reactions that people can use against you. You don't waste your energy fighting battles that aren't worth your time. You move with discipline. You think before you speak. You understand that not every action deserves a response, and not every disrespect deserves acknowledgement. Silence is the art of choosing your battles wisely and protecting your spirit from unnecessary conflict. The world teaches you to be loud, to constantly express yourself, to speak your mind no matter what. But real strength is often quiet. Real growth happens in the dark, behind closed doors, where nobody sees the struggle, the pain, or the work you're putting in. When you stay silent during your transformation, you remove the pressure of being watched. You grow at your own pace. You heal without interference. You rebuild without opinions shaping your direction. And when you finally emerge, people will think the change happened overnight because they never saw the process. That is the power of silence. It gives you the freedom to evolve without interruption and the strength to let your results speak louder than your voice ever could. Guarding your energy is one of the most important things you can do for your peace, your growth, and your future. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, your emotions, or your time, but most people give those things away without thinking. They let everyone walk in and out of their mental space, taking pieces of them, draining their spirit and leaving behind confusion and exhaustion. When you finally decide to protect your energy, you begin to understand that your mind Your heart and your focus are sacred. They are not public property. They are not open for anyone to influence, manipulate, or consume. You start recognizing how much of your stress didn't come from your own life, but from allowing others to dump their negativity, their drama, and their chaos onto you. Protecting your energy is the moment you take responsibility for what you allow and what you refuse to carry. There are people who don't want your best. They want your attention. There are people who don't want your growth. They want your dependency. Some people only come around when they need something, when they want a reaction, when they want to distract you from your goals. When you don't guard energy, you give these people permission to drain you. But the moment you create boundaries, the moment you stop giving unlimited access to your time and emotions, their power over you begins to fade. You start to feel lighter because you're no longer carrying people you were never meant to carry. You become more focused because you're no longer responding to unnecessary noise. You gain clarity because you finally have space to think without being clouded by outside influence. Guarding your energy also means being selective about what you share. Not everyone deserves to know your dreams, your plans, or your struggles. Some people will use your vulnerability against you. Others will try to talk you out of your goals because your growth threatens their comfort. When you guard your energy, you stop oversharing, you stop explaining yourself to people who haven't earned your truth. You learn that privacy isn't secrecy, it's protection. You protect your ideas until they are strong enough to stand. You protect your healing until your scars are no longer fresh. You protect your progress until it's stable enough that nobody can shake it. This isn't being closed off, it's being wise. You also begin to recognize the environments that affect your energy. Some places drain you the moment you walk in. Some conversations leave you feeling empty even though you said nothing wrong. Some people bring tension, anxiety, or heaviness that lingers long after they leave. Protecting your energy means paying attention to how you feel around others and choosing peace over familiarity. It means walking away from situations that don't serve you, even if they've been part of your life for years. It's understanding that loyalty should never cost you your sanity and that love should never require self-betrayal. When you guard your energy, you stop trying to fix people who don't want help and situations that don't want to change. You stop sacrificing your well-being to keep the wrong connections alive. As you strengthen this habit, you become more grounded, more confident, and more in control of your life. You start making decisions that align with your values instead of your fears. You choose peace over chaos, purpose over distraction, growth over comfort. You begin to attract people who respect your boundaries instead of pushing past them. You connect with individuals who inspire you, encourage you, and appreciate the energy you bring. And the more you guard your energy, the more you realize how powerful, calm, and focused you become when you stop giving pieces of yourself to places that don't deserve them. In protecting your energy, you protect your future, your dreams, and the person you are becoming. Growth has never been something that requires an audience. The most powerful transformations in life happen when nobody is watching, when the noise around you fades, and all that remains is you, your truth, and the work you choose to do. Private growth is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront yourself without distraction. You have to face the habits that hold you back, the wounds you've hidden, the fears you've avoided, and the patterns you've repeated for years. But this quiet space is where your real evolution begins. It's where you understand who you are beneath the expectations, the pressure, the noise, and the roles you've been playing for the world. When you allow yourself to grow privately, you give yourself the freedom to learn, fail, adjust, and rise without anyone judging your process. There is something sacred about working on yourself behind closed doors. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to perform strength you don't feel yet. You don't have to pretend you're okay when you're still trying to figure out how to heal. You can be honest with yourself in a way you can't always be when the world is staring. When you grow in private, you protect the fragile stages of your transformation, the early steps that are easy to break if exposed too soon. Every seed needs darkness before it can break through the ground. Every masterpiece starts unseen, unfinished. imperfect. Your growth is no different. It needs room to breathe. It needs isolation to gain strength. It needs stillness to take shape. When you choose private growth, you step into a space where discipline becomes your closest companion. No one is cheering, no one is clapping, no one is validating your effort. All you have is your own commitment, and that kind of growth is real because it's not fueled by external praise, but by inner purpose. You wake up and show up for yourself because you know where you want to go, even if nobody else sees the vision. You take small steps consistently, and those steps begin stacking into progress. There's no pressure to impress anyone, no fear of failing publicly, no distraction from comparing your journey to someone else's. It's just you focusing on becoming better than you were yesterday. People often misunderstand private growth because they assume silence means nothing is happening. They think you're stagnant, lost, or disconnected simply because you're not broadcasting your every move. But they don't see the battles you're fighting within yourself. They don't see the discipline you're building, the habits you're changing, the mindsets you're breaking, the healing you're allowing. They don't see the nights you spend reflecting instead of running, the mornings you push yourself when nobody is watching, the choices you make that nobody else will ever know about. Private growth is invisible until suddenly it's undeniable. It's the kind of progress that reveals itself only when you've grown too big to fit your old life. Keeping your growth private also protects you from those who might discourage you. Not everyone wants to see you rise. Some people get uncomfortable when you start improving because your growth reminds them of their stagnation. When your evolution threatens their comfort, they will try to pull you back into the version of yourself they are used to. But when you grow privately, you avoid that resistance. You grow without interference. You transform without being held back by opinions, doubts, or expectations that are not yours to carry. As time goes on, you begin to understand that private growth is not about hiding, it's about protecting. Protecting your peace, protecting your vision, protecting the new version of yourself that you are building piece by piece. And when you finally step into the world with your growth complete, the change speaks for itself. People won't understand how you became so grounded, so strong, so focused. They won't see the process, but they will feel the difference. Your actions, your presence, and your progress tell a story louder than any explanation could. People will always misinterpret what they cannot understand, and silence is one of those things that confuses people more than anything else. When you choose to go quiet, when you pull your energy back and stop showing up in ways you used to, people begin to create their own stories about you. They will think you've fallen off, that you've lost direction, that something is wrong with you. They may even believe you're struggling, broken, or drifting because they can't see what's happening behind the scenes. But that's only because most people associate silence with weakness rather than growth. They don't realize that the quiet seasons of your life are often the most powerful ones, the ones where you are rebuilding the foundation of who you are. Silence challenges others because they're so used to noise, so used to tracking your moves, so used to feeling like they know what's going on with you. And when you stop feeding them information, they feel uneasy, even threatened, because your silence creates distance they can't control. People will assume your silence is a sign of defeat, but it's usually the opposite. It means you are choosing yourself. It means you have stopped explaining your dreams, stopped defending your choices, stopped sharing your pain with people who never cared to understand it. They will misunderstand your silence because they were accustomed to you being available, expressive, predictable. As soon as you stop being that version of yourself, they don't know how to handle the change. Your silence forces them to confront the fact that they no longer have access to you the way they once did. It forces them to deal with their own assumptions instead of relying on your words to guide them. People fear what they can't read, and when you go silent, you become unreadable. But what they don't see is the work happening beneath the surface. They don't see you reflecting, growing, healing, leveling up. They don't see the choices you're making to create a better version of yourself. They don't see the discipline you're building, the boundaries you're learning to enforce, the habits you're replacing. They don't see the mental breakthroughs, the emotional strength, the spiritual grounding. All they see is the absence of the noise they were used to, and because of that, they assume nothing meaningful is happening. In reality, silence is where the biggest changes occur. It's where you learn to control your reactions, master your emotions, and strengthen your focus. Silence is where you return to yourself without distraction. The misunderstanding that silence brings is actually part of its power. When people underestimate you, you gain freedom. When they assume you're stuck, you get to move without pressure. When they think you're lost, you get to build without interference. Silence shields your transformation from the opinions that could slow it down. It keeps you hidden long enough to grow stronger, smarter, and clearer. And when the time comes for you to reemerge, your progress will speak louder than any defense or explanation ever could. People will act surprised by your growth, but the only reason they're surprised is because they couldn't see it. They were looking for noise, not understanding that real elevation never announces itself before it's ready. Some will try to pull you out of your silence because your quiet makes them uncomfortable. They'll ask questions, make assumptions, even criticize your distance. But that says more about their dependence on your old self than it does about the person you're becoming. Silence exposes the relationships that were only held together by your effort. It reveals who cares genuinely and who only cared when you were easy to access. It shows you who respects your boundaries and who takes them personally. That's why silence is so powerful. It is a filter, a mirror, and a shield all at once. When you stay silent, you don't just protect your growth, you expose the truth about everyone around you without saying a single word. Your comeback will always speak louder than anything you could ever say, and that is why letting your results do the talking is one of the strongest forms of power you can develop. When you stop explaining your plans, defending your choices, or announcing your every move, you enter a different league of growth. You start building a life that is driven not by the need for approval, but by the desire for progress. The world is full of people who talk big, who make promises, who broadcast every little intention, yet they deliver nothing. But when you decide to stay silent and let your actions reveal what you've been working on, you separate yourself from that noise. You become someone whose success doesn't come from words, but from proof. And nothing commands respect like results that cannot be denied. There is a unique strength in choosing not to respond to doubt, not to react to criticism, not to waste energy proving yourself to people who want to see you fail. When you hold your silence and focus on your goals, you're telling the world that you don't need validation to keep moving. You don't need applause to stay consistent. You don't need anyone to believe in you in order to become who you're meant to be. Your silence becomes discipline, and your discipline becomes transformation. Every moment you spend working in the dark builds the momentum that will eventually shine in the light. You're not hiding, you're preparing. You're not avoiding, you're elevating. You're not quiet because you've given up. You're quiet because you're working on a comeback that makes noise unnecessary. People might count you out during this time. They might think you faded away or lost your spark. They may think you're done because they don't see the fire burning inside you. That's the beauty of staying silent. Nobody sees the pressure you're turning into strength, the setbacks you're turning into strategy, the pain you're turning into purpose. They don't see the mornings you choose discipline over comfort, the nights you push through exhaustion, the sacrifices you make that nobody will ever know about. They don't see the mental shifts, the habits you're forming, the courage you're building behind the scenes. But one day they will see the results. One day your progress will walk into the room before you do. One day your success will speak with a volume no explanation could match. Your comeback becomes powerful because it is rooted in self-belief, not approval. When you rise without talking about it, when you evolve without announcing it, when you achieve without seeking attention, your accomplishments carry a different weight. They carry authenticity. They carry resilience. They carry truth. People respect outcomes more than promises, effort more than excuses, consistency more than declarations. And when you show them what you've been working for through your actions, you gain a kind of authority that can't be debated. Your results become your voice. Your success becomes your response. Your growth becomes your revenge. The world will always try to distract you with opinions, drama, and expectations. But when you choose silence and keep pushing forward, you protect your path from interference. You protect your mind from negativity. You protect your energy from people who don't want to see you rise. You understand that every second spent trying to prove yourself is a second taken away from becoming yourself. And becoming is the real goal, because when the moment of transformation arrives, when your results finally show themselves, when your breakthrough becomes visible, every doubt, every insult, every misunderstanding becomes irrelevant. Your comeback is not something you shout, it's something you embody. It's something people feel when you walk into a room. It's something they witness when they see how far you've come from the person you used to be. And the beauty of it all is that your silence will make that comeback hit even harder, because nobody saw it coming, yet nobody will be able to ignore it.